April 18, 1942. Tokyo's air raid sirens scream as something impossible approaches. 16 American B-25 bombers, launched from the sea, appear overhead, shattering Japan's illusion of invulnerability. This is the moment Japan was stunned, and the legend of the Mitchell bomber was born. The official story marks the Doolittle Raid as a minor strike with limited casualties. Yet its psychological shockwaves rippled across both nations, igniting panic in Japan and a surge of hope in America. But how did a medium bomber and a one-way mission send such a message? And why did the B-25's future become even more explosive than its famous debut? The answers start here. Sirens cut through the midday air as Tokyo's first American air raid unfolded. In neighborhoods across the city, families scrambled for cover, clutching children and belongings, unsure if the bombs would fall on their street. Schoolyards emptied in confusion. Shelters, usually ignored, filled to capacity. Municipal records later logged some at nearly 80% occupancy, a figure unseen before that day. Police patrols doubled at train stations and government buildings, radios barked orders to stay calm, and the city's sensors worked through the night, blacking out any hint of panic from the newspapers. Inside official police files, the tone was urgent. Dozens were detained for spreading rumors of more bombers on the way. Reports described crowds pressing into subway entrances and parks, some injured in the rush. Fires burned in several districts, and by nightfall, the death toll in Tokyo stood at around 50, with nearly 500 wounded, numbers the authorities kept from public view. In private diaries, the shock was raw. One schoolgirl wrote of mothers running to classrooms, teachers unable to hide their fear. An office worker in Chiyoda Ward described the silence that followed the all-clear, broken only by whispered questions. If American planes could reach Tokyo, what else was possible? The illusion that Japan's home islands were untouchable had vanished in a single afternoon, replaced by a gnawing uncertainty that no official statement could dispel. Before dawn on April 18, 1942, the deck of USS Hornet groaned under the weight of 16 B-25 Mitchell bombers. Each aircraft, stripped of non-essential gear and crammed with extra fuel, waited nose to tail on the pitching carrier. The men inside were volunteers, briefed for a mission whose odds were measured in courage, not in survival. Jimmy Doolittle, already a legend for his flying exploits, climbed into the lead bomber. He had drilled his crews for weeks, teaching them to coax a fully loaded medium bomber into the air with only a few hundred feet of deck ahead and nothing but open ocean beyond. The B-25 was chosen for its compact wingspan, strong landing gear, and forgiving handling, traits that gave it a fighting chance to leap off a carrier but made recovery impossible. Navy and Army engineers had tested the concept off Norfolk, proving the takeoff could be done, but only in one direction. Once airborne, there would be no return. At 8:15 a.m., with the Hornet rolling in heavy seas and Japanese picket boats raising the alarm, Doolittle advanced the throttles. His bomber surged forward, wheels skimming the deck, then dipped toward the gray Pacific before clawing into the air. One by one, the remaining 15 bombers followed, each launch a gamble played out in front of an anxious deck crew. Within an hour, all 16 B-25s were airborne, bound for Japan's heartland. Their mission was not just to drop bombs, but to prove that distance and danger could be overcome by planning, skill, and sheer audacity. In March 1939, the U.S. Army issued a demanding specification: a medium bomber capable of hauling 2,400 pounds of bombs over 1,200 miles at nearly 300 miles per hour. North American Aviation's engineers, led by a restless design team, responded with the NA-40 prototype. Early flights revealed promise, but a crash forced a rapid rethink. The result was the NA-62, a machine that would become the B-25 Mitchell. Key changes included a distinctive gull-wing design, flattened outer panels for better stability, and a larger vertical tail to keep the bomber controllable if one engine failed. Armor plating and self-sealing fuel tanks were added to shield crews from flak and fire, while defensive guns were strategically placed around the airframe. These choices were not just technical details, they gave the B-25 its reputation for resilience and adaptability. By August 1939, the Army ordered 184 of these bombers off the drawing board, betting that this new airframe could meet the unpredictable demands of a world at war. The Mitchell's core features would prove ready for far more than the missions first imagined. Combat squadrons flying the B-25B and C variants quickly discovered the aircraft's appetite for adaptation. In the Pacific, crews pushed the Mitchell to its limits, installing extra fuel tanks to stretch range for long overwater strikes, while engineers in the field added external racks for bombs and, in some cases, even torpedoes. Reports from the Solomon Islands and New Guinea described Mitchells skimming treetops to hit enemy airfields and convoys, then clawing skyward on a single engine if flak claimed a power plant. Pilots learned to keep their speed above 145 miles per hour after an engine failure, or risk losing control. Meanwhile, in Europe, RAF and Free French squadrons took delivery of B-25Cs, known as Mitchell the Sins, using them for daylight raids on rail yards, bridges, and V-weapon sites. Soviet bomber regiments, supplied through Lend-Lease, praised the Mitchell's ruggedness and American comfort, flying thousands of sorties against German supply lines. Across every front, crews spoke of an airplane that could take punishment and bring its crew home. But many also noted a gap in forward firepower, especially on low-level attacks. This feedback would soon drive a dramatic escalation in the B-25's offensive punch. In the steaming workshops of New Guinea, mechanics and air crews worked through the night, stripping the glazed noses from battered B-25s and replacing them with slabs of salvaged aluminum and plywood. Paul "Pappy" Gunn, a former naval aviator turned depot wizard, led the charge. With little more than hand tools and a stubborn streak, Gunn and his crew bolted extra .50 caliber machine guns into the noses and cheek positions, running cables and trigger lines through hastily drilled holes. Ammunition trays hammered out of scrap lined the floor. The result was a new breed of bomber, one that could sweep low over enemy convoys, pouring streams of fire ahead. General George Kenney, commanding 5th Air Force, watched these conversions with keen interest. After the first missions shredded Japanese supply barges and left smoking wrecks in their wake, Kenney ordered depot logs to track each modification. Field reports credited these nose gun packs with breaking up shipping lanes and scattering enemy troops. The concept proved itself in combat, and soon, North American aviation would be called to turn these depot innovations into factory-standard gunships. North Americans' assembly lines answered the Pacific's call for firepower with a new breed of B-25s. The G model arrived with a 75mm M4 cannon in its nose, the largest ever mounted on an American aircraft at the time. Each shot from the cannon could rip open a coastal freighter or smash a pillbox, but the real terror came from the growing wall of .50 caliber guns, up to 8 firing straight ahead, with more in cheek pods and waist mounts. By the time the B-25H and J variants rolled off the line, some carried 14 heavy machine guns, earning a reputation as the most heavily armed bombers of the war. Their baptism came in March 1943, when low-flying Mitchells swept over the Bismarck Sea. Engines roaring just above the waves, B-25s unleashed skip bombs and a hail of gunfire into Japanese troop transports and destroyers. 8 transports and 4 destroyers were lost in a single action. Over 12,700 tons sent to the bottom, nearly 3,000 men lost. The battle proved that massed forward fire could decide the fate of entire convoys. Even after the 75mm cannon was phased out for faster-firing guns, the legacy of the Mitchell gunship lived on. Its doctrine, concentrated, low-level firepower, became the blueprint for future gunships, from Vietnam's AC-47 to the AC-130 still flying today. On April 18, 1942, 16 B-25 bombers launched from the USS Hornet struck Tokyo, leaving around 60 dead and 500 wounded, an event documented in both American records and Japanese police files. This single mission, ordered by President Roosevelt, not only lifted US morale, but also exposed Japan's vulnerability and shook military doctrine on both sides. The B-25's transformation from a medium bomber to a heavily armed gunship was driven by battle reports, field innovations by figures like Kenney and Pappy Gunn, and decisive victories such as the Battle of the Bismarck Sea in March 1943. The evidence shows the B-25's effectiveness shaped Allied tactics and inspired later gunship designs. Today, the legacy of the B-25 endures in air forces worldwide and in the doctrine of airborne firepower. The appearance of an American B-25 over Japan marked not just a turning point in one war, but a blueprint for air combat that continues to influence military strategy.